In the half a century preceding the release of Die Hard, a powerful archetypal journey had been burned into the American psyche, that of men of fighting age travelling to the Far East in the service of war. First, in the fighting in the Pacific in World War II from 1942 to 1945, then in the conflict in Korea in 1950 to 1953, and then again in Vietnam from 1955 to 1975. This would mean that in 1988, the year of Die Hard's release, an audience member in his mid-40s could have lived through all three of these wars, and may have actually fought in the latter. His father may have also fought in the Japanese or Korean conflicts, and so this imagery of American men enduring great battles in Asia will be deeply imprinted on the minds of many 1980s moviegoers. This is significant as, in a number of ways, Die Hard subtly suggests that this arena of the Asian war campaigns is the terrain in which John McClane is now also operating. Early in the film, John enters the Nakatomi Plaza, a place that he will not be able to leave until this battle is over. This space is clearly demarcated throughout the film as foreign soil, through the images of the samurai clan-like logo of the Nakatomi Corporation that pervades many scenes. The ancient warrior statues of far-off cultures laundered throughout the building. The imperial bonsai plants, the East Asian ornaments and armour, and the religious statues that appear in many scenes. This all visually sets the tone that John is no longer in America. He is a man in an unfamiliar terrain, fighting for his survival. In an early scene at the Nakatomi Plaza, John admires the party that has been put on and comments,
"I didn't realize they celebrated Christmas in Japan."
As he is observing his current circumstances as he says this line, it actually implies that they are now already in Japanese territory, and John is commenting on the surprising custom of this foreign land. Furthermore, Joe Takagi, head of the Nakatomi Plaza, then responds with a reference to the attack in the Pacific on the American territory of Pearl Harbor by the Imperial Japanese Navy that led to the United States' entry into World War II.
Flexible. Pearl Harbor didn't work out, so we got you with tape decks.
The joke itself is not very funny, and the fact that it is included despite this again points to the deliberate inclusion of a reference to a historical American war memory in order to further bolster the idea that Die Hard is unfolding within this tradition of American military combat. Pearl Harbor is again alluded to significantly when John McClane's adversaries first arrive into the action in a van labelled Pacific Courier. As in World War II, it is from the Pacific that the initiation of war will come, and in turn trigger an epic combat saga. This theme is further reinforced in one of the hacking scenes when Theo discovers that one of the passcodes to unlock the riches of the Nakatomi building's vaults is the word Akagi, a Japanese aircraft carrier assigned to the Battle of Pearl Harbor. This additional reference to World War II and real combat again subconsciously signals to the viewer that this film is operating in that same space as these traumatic national events. We see on the computer console the image of an elderly Japanese executive, along with his military record from World War II, which contains service in a number of campaigns in Pearl Harbor, Ceylon, Java, and more. And all of this again situates the action clearly in the realm of America's foreign wars. Similarly to this Akagi aircraft carrier reference, in a scene in the executive lounge, director John McClane takes special care to show us another warship up close when the camera pulls focus onto a model gunship that is part of the Nakatomi's Indonesian project, once again making the connection between Asian territory and war. It is worth noting here that almost all of the bad guys in this film are from Germany, and that the Nazis, along with the Imperial Japanese Army, formed America's main adversaries in the Second World War. This set of combatants is reproduced at a micro level in Die Hard. and it is accentuated by the very Aryan nature of the bad guys. Another evocation of the American war theme that would have been particularly familiar to many men of the time is the reference to the Vietnam War, both visually and in the use of helicopter gunships. But also directly when the senior Agent Johnson exclaims to the junior Agent Johnson, "It's like fucking Saigon! It's like..." This once again draws a direct comparison between modern East Asian warfare and the events at the Nakatomi Plaza, and heightens the sense of drama in the film by invoking the American War in Southeast Asia, in which roughly 2.7 million American citizens served.
That's Paris in the spring.
Idiot.
You got me.
When thrown into this landscape of war and foreign chaos, John McClane falls back on the deep-seated American archetype of the cowboy. The film lays this groundwork early on to cast John in the mould of the rugged individual, as, in the opening scenes, we see John McClane arrive in LA from the East Coast. The course of John's journey out west draws immediate connections to that of the early pioneers of history, who moved out west across the plains, and this land has always represented the frontier and heroism in American mythology. It also perhaps signifies John entering into the realm of mythical cowboys, as well as real ones. Los Angeles is the home of Hollywood, and the place where the personas of John Wayne and Gary Cooper were created. John too will now enter into this world of archetypal cowboys. John's profession of 11 years as a New York City cop suggests that he operates in a real and authentic world in which he is constantly confronted with the realities of life. This presents a stark contrast to the land to which he has travelled, LA, which is often seen as having an inauthentic, fake, or shallow culture.
California.
This idea is emphasised in these early scenes by the fact that it's Christmas Eve, yet nothing feels quite right. The weather is warm, John is a long way from home, and even the Christmas music is hip-hop.
Is there any Christmas music?
This is Christmas music.
John is constantly presented as the binary opposite to the men who move within this world. John wears a dirty vest. They wear designer suits.
Nice suit. John Phillips, London.
And look remarkably like men's fashion models for a bunch of hostage-taking thieves. John wears his simple, cheap watch turned inwards on his wrist, whereas Ellis attempts to show off by bragging about the Rolex he gave Holly.
Show him the watch. It's just a small token of appreciation for all our hard work. It's a Rolex.
John went to Catholic school,
Sister Teresa called me Mr. McClane in the 3rd grade.
while Hans was likely privately educated.
And when Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. Benefits of a classical education.
This all helps to establish another hero-villain dichotomy in the mind of the viewer, as this story is framed in the context of the authentic, working-class American versus the out-of-touch, wealthy elites. In 1986, 2 years prior to the release of Die Hard, the gap between the richest and poorest Americans was at an all-time high, and on October 19, 1987, the Black Monday stock market crash occurred, just 9 months before this film came out.
This is the Nightly Business Report.
Good evening, everyone. Well, the law of gravity hit Wall Street today, and financial markets around the world, for that matter, as stock prices plunged even more than they did on Black Tuesday of 1929.
It is within this context that the film positions itself in direct opposition to the values of the new, inauthentic culture of yuppie wealth in favour of the average, hard-working people of America. This concept that John is actually saving his wife from the clutches of this corrupt corporate life is actually very cleverly visually represented in the final showdown scene where John saves Holly by breaking loose the watch strap of the Rolex given to her by Ellis that Hans is now desperately gripping onto. Here, John is finally freeing his wife from the literal chains of modern yuppie culture. John McClane is able to embody the archetype of an earlier, more traditional American man, both in the links to the real military campaigns that we have already discussed, but also by tracing further back into the American imagination and connoting Bruce Willis's character with the mythological cowboys of the past. This is specifically done through McClane's penchant for Roy Rogers.
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequin shirts.
Roy Rogers was one of the most clean-cut cowboys in US culture.
Hey, that's Roy Rogers and Trigger.
And he is a good representation of what were perceived as simpler times in American cultural history. John places himself within this cowboy lineage by responding to Hans's question.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
By invoking an old rallying cowhand cry with a modern twist.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Hans criticizes this culture.
Just another American who saw too many movies as a child. Another orphan of a bankrupt culture who thinks he's John Wayne.
But in the end, it is actually because of his lack of understanding of traditional American narratives that Hans loses in his battle with John McClane. In the final showdown scene, Hans tells John that
Still the cowboy, Mr. McClane, Americans all alike. Well, this time John Wayne does not walk off into the sunset with Grace Kelly.
this actually never happened in any films, and here Gruber has gotten confused about the end of the classic western High Noon, which in fact starred Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly. John succinctly points this out.
It's Gary Cooper, asshole.
And this allows him to gain a subtle advantage over Gruber by distracting him and in turn winning the Mexican standoff between the three men. This offers a brilliant resolution to the theme of traditional American culture under attack, and reasserts the power, in the world of Die Hard, of properly understanding the perceived authentic values. The origin of the phrase yippee-ki-yay is a little bit hard to pin down exactly, and there are actually several differing opinions on the etymology of this phrase from the Old West. The expression was culturally connected to Roy Rogers through things like the 1948 cartoon, The Ballad of Pecco's Bill,
So yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-oh, we're the toughest critter west of the Alamo.
and also earlier in the 1940 film West of the Badlands. However, I dug a little deeper into this and found that the first time the phrase entered mainstream culture was with this piece of wholesome Americana. This is a scene where a variation of the phrase is sung, taken from the 1936 film Rhythm on the Range, directed by Norman Taurog. A movie that encapsulates everything John is looking to restore to the fallen world of modern LA. In the film, Bing Crosby plays Jeff Larrabee, a cowboy who, much like John, heads out west to try to win back the heart of a woman. Here is where we truly see how deep John's connection is with the idealized cowboy canon of the past. There, among the crowd, in one of his earliest movie appearances, is a young, uncredited Roy Rogers, John McClane's favourite cowboy.